Hey guys, welcome to the Pickleball Pursuit podcast. I'm Lewis, your host, here with my co-host Justin. Justin, he's been on a live with me on Instagram, but he and I are going to start this new podcast, and it should be pretty fun. So for everyone who does not know who Justin is, Justin, could you kind of just introduce yourself to the audience and let them know who you are?
Yeah, sure. So I am the head of product development for Mark Pickleball, and beyond that, just a major paddle nerd. So Lewis and I are always deep into nerdy conversation about different paddles, and even before I was working with a paddle company, I was doing a lot of private testing. So just your average nerd, I guess.
Awesome. Yeah. So Justin, obviously, like he said, works at Mark and kind of helps develop the all the paddles and whatnot, which is kind of how we got introduced to one another once I received the Kinetic for the first time, and we've just been pretty much chatting back and forth ever since then. So excited to have you here. For everyone who does not necessarily know me or who I am, I'm Lewis. I run this pickleball channel, Pickleball Pursuit. I do video production full-time for my living and just play pickleball on the side and do this for fun. The last 6 or so months I've been doing reviews and just loving every second of it and playing with as many paddles and as many people as possible. So this is our first episode. We're going to be talking primarily about pickleball paddles. Justin is a little bit more fluent with the professional pickleball scene, so he's going to lead more of the discussion in terms of the professional side of pickleball. And then we're really just going to be talking about anything pickleball related and probably at some point some things that are not necessarily related to pickleball. So this could be very interesting. It could not.
Listen, so. They come here for you to look at your pretty face.
No.
And then I'll just put him to sleep. Talk about the technical things,
nerd out
and paddle construction. Yeah,
I'll just be the beauty. You can be the brains, and we'll see what happens, man. What's the worst that can happen? So, first thing we're going to talk about today is just what we've been doing in terms of just playing pickleball. Justin, have you been able to play very much the last week or so?
It's been crazy here. I'm in Texas, and the storms have just been wild, right? And unfortunately for me, I live in kind of a smaller town, so I have 0 indoor courts. So pretty much at the mercy of the weather. I think I've only gotten to play twice in the last 2 weeks just because it's been rain, tornadoes, hail, all that stuff. So unfortunately, haven't been playing much. I have a little stupid dink wall in my garage, but I always get bored, so I don't ever do much out there. And nothing fun, honestly. I got a couple prototypes in the bag that I really want to play with, but can't. What about you? Have you been playing?
Yeah, I had a tournament last weekend. It was my first time playing 3 events. I played men's doubles, mixed doubles for the first time, and then minor league pickleball tournament, which was like Duper 16. So if you're combined, Duper is under 16 for all 4 members. That's how you are grouped into rather than having like a 4-0 or a 4-5 plus or whatever division you're playing.
So your team was 3 5-0s and you, right? If you were Duper 16.
3 5-0s and a 1-0, pretty much. That's about accurate. I was definitely I was probably the weakest link, but we in the minor league pickleball tournament, we got slapped, but every game was very competitive, including the mixed doubles. So I played well. I played 4-0 plus mixed doubles and did way better than I did in the men's doubles 4-0 tournament. And then for the MILP, we played a bunch of really good players, and I think we went 1-3. No, we went 1-4, excuse me, because we played in the 3rd place game or the 3rd and 4th place game because there was 4 teams. But only one winner actually got the prize of playing in the next tournament, basically. So it didn't really matter if you didn't 3rd place or 4th place, didn't really matter. But played well. Was happy with that, and I had a very interesting paddle choice for mixed and MILP, which you have also played with. But to bring it back to the men's doubles, I played with the J2K. Nothing about the paddle was, indicative of my playing. I played pretty poorly that day, and it wasn't the paddle's fault. It was just me. And I was flirting with. It's always the paddle, yeah. But not the J2K. That paddle, the Mark Kinetic and like the J3 are like three paddles I could literally never blame the paddle for ever, because they're all very forgiving, very stable, and very easy to play with. But for whatever reason, you traded me a Proton paddle, and I played with it one time, and I was like, oh, this paddle's kind of badass. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try this for the mixed doubles. And I played with it and was playing like pretty damn good. Like, because we were playing 4-0 plus, and there was only 2 4-0 teams in the tournament, and they combined the 4-5 plus because there was only 3. So there was 5 teams total, and we ended up playing 3 4-5 plus teams. God, I can't talk. But anyway, loved it. Felt really good with it. I was kind of shocked at how well this paddle played. And you
pretty
kind of had. Too. Yeah, you probably had like slightly different thoughts on this paddle than I did. So I'll let you kind of go first and tell me what you thought about this paddle, because you had this before me.
Yeah. So, first I want to say, I feel like it's kind of the true test of if a paddle's good for you, right? Good for you when you play up. So the fact that you said you were playing against people who were higher rated, or you got into a higher bracket and still feel like you played well, that probably says that the paddle's pretty good for you. I tell the people this all the time, because I do paddle fittings or demos, and then whenever people will get a paddle and they're just hitting it, they're just warming up, they'd be like, I love it. I'm like, yeah, but wait till you're pressed. Wait till you have to play defense with it, and then you'll see if you really love it. Yeah, exactly. So that kind of goes right back to the Proton for me personally. So that one is the Nomex core one, and I haven't got to try the polypropylene core one, only that Nomex core one. And to me, it was okay. First, let me just say it's a good paddle, right? Yeah. But for me, it was too clunky. It was very stiff, pretty heavy. The swing weight and the weight itself was pretty heavy for a standard shape. Yeah, it was kind of just felt slow and clunky. Yeah, and then their coating is super cool, but obviously it adds some weight to the face. And then with it being that Nomex court was so stiff, I've never had any tennis elbow or wrist issues or anything, but playing with that paddle, it almost felt like my arm's going to shatter if I block a hard drive. It was just so stiff. So I didn't put too many hours into it. Honestly, I was pretty quickly like, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
But that's just my preference. I like kind of, fast paddles in general. And I guess I thought I liked stiff paddles, but I guess I need a little more forgiveness than that.
Yeah, it's definitely a harsher feeling paddle. I liked it, but I mean, you can kind of hear the Nomex has a really high pitch and firm feedback that's not really seen in really any other types of cores, apart from the maybe Kevlar cores, but I've never really played with a Kevlar core paddle, so I couldn't say for certain.
It's the same thing.
But yeah, this paddle, for whatever reason, I felt although it was very stiff and firm, it was kind of similar to how the Mark 1 was, but in a totally different realm. The Mark 1 or the Kinetic, formerly Kinetic, was a very stiff paddle, but it was you knew exactly where the ball was going.
Predictable, which is something,
right? Exactly. Very predictable. Yeah. You know where it's going all across the face. No, apart from, the edge of the paddle, are you oh shit, where is this ball going to go? Or, it surprises you that it jumps off, faster or slower than you were expecting. But this one I felt was similar to that, and although it was very firm and very stiff and very responsive, I knew where it was
Yeah.
going, and I didn't really have any issues with resets. But although it is a standard shape paddle, it was a little bit shorter, so there was a couple of shots here and there where I was like, oh, I definitely would have had a slightly better outcome had I had a hybrid shape paddle or
Yeah.
even elongated, because I think it is 15.75 inches, right? So it's a slightly
Yeah, it's short. And worth
slightly
mentioning,
shorter.
this is what's crazy about it, if for the numbers of it. We're talking to a paddle that's under 16 inches long and it's over 120 swing weight.
Yes,
So
yeah, it's very high swing weight.
And you'll see like you have no lead on that because you can't even put it on. It's a beefy boy. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
some people's thing, but it's just not my thing, So,
Right,
so I think
right.
that's what tripped me up. Honestly, if the balance or the weighting had been different, maybe the stiffness wouldn't have gotten to me. But it was like altogether the kind of stiff feedback, the harsh feel, and then how kind of slow and heavy it felt, even for a short paddle. It just felt so clunky to me. I didn't
Yeah.
feel like I could like get into my flow of the game. You know what I mean? But I will say
Right.
you're right. It's very, very predictable though. Like
Yeah.
resets, blocks, and things like that. It felt like I knew where to expect the ball, especially if I could get the center of the paddle on it.
Absolutely, yeah. And I didn't notice the weight quite as much as you did, and I was like very adamant about paying attention to that, which was crazy because I'm a very sensitive person to like high weight paddles. Like usually like anything like 122 or above, I'm like, I don't really want to. That's not something I want to play with competitively, number one, or for a long time.
Maybe
Like
I
the
just need to
paddle
hit the
tech.
gym.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, I'm yoked, son.
Compared to me.
No, no, we're both very lean, long and lean people. But the one thing that I liked about this more than probably any paddle on the market right now is just the spin that you can get off of this. I felt like my rolls and my flicks were by far better than any paddle that I've ever used, and that was like one of my stronger points of my game when using this paddle. Was just this nanotech surface is very intriguing to me, and
That's really cool.
yeah, it has me curious to see what the polypropylene core paddle performs like. I'm hoping to get that from Proton in the next couple weeks, so still
Nice.
waiting to hear back
You
from them. So.
you and thousands of others who ordered 6 months ago are waiting still. But let me ask you something about the coating. Whenever I was playing with it, I felt like if you were swinging fast, so on a drive, like you said, a flick, something like that, I felt like it had a lot of spin. But it almost felt like on the really slow stuff, we're talking like dinks essentially, that it had less grab than a normal paddle. Would you say so? Because I'm somebody who likes to play with a lot of spin on dinks. Like I slice a lot of dinks or I topspin dinks, so I kind of hook my backhand dinks also.
Okay, so you do one-handed, like almost like table tennis type dinks.
Yeah, I'll slice a lot of them, but I will also like hook them.
Right, right.
Back over, side spin.
Yeah, yeah.
But it just felt like that Proton on the soft shots, it actually didn't grab the ball as much. Mm-hmm. But maybe it's just me.
I didn't notice it too much. I really did just like the whole time using it. I felt like I was very happy with the spin. The spin generation.
That's awesome.
From really any shot. It does collect like a good bit of ball dust, which is shocking because it is like a rubber. But like I played with it like 8 games and then felt the paddle and there was like quite a bit of ball dust on it. So
yeah, but you don't see it at first because it's so brightly
you don't
colored.
see it.
Yeah.
Exactly. I was like, oh, I have to clean this off after like every game. I'm sure that
very
impacts,
cool technology.
Yeah, very interesting. Definitely
Do you think
something
it
I really
feels
want.
like a? Sorry. Do you think it feels like a laptop case or like a phone case?
Yeah.
First time I felt that paddle, I was like immediately. That's what I thought.
That's a really, really good comparison, especially like those not silicone, they're in between silicone and like hard plastic that you know, all the cheap iPhone cases come in. It feels very similar to that. And I do think that this is potentially the future of paddle surfaces. Maybe not this exact thing because it does increase quite a bit of weight on the paddle. but something that has similar performance characteristics to this, but is lighter and just as durable. Because I feel like the lack of degenerative spin, the fact that this doesn't degrade in terms of the face and spin potential is really
huge,
amazing. Yeah, because that's like probably the number one thing that people switch paddles for, especially pros. Because they literally switch paddles after like, I don't know, a couple hours of play. I think I heard Travis Rettenmeyer. He was saying that he switches in his engage paddles like immediately. Like it's almost insane. Like a day, he'll play with it a day, and it's not enough grit, or as gritty as it was.
Yeah, maybe one tournament max or something.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It's insane, and that makes sense because the margins are so high at that point that they need literally maximum performance for every single game that they play. But I definitely think the Proton is a company to watch. I think if they can somehow dial back their swing weights, these paddles will be a problem. I think the elongated one is like 130, if I remember, but it's crazy. I can't think of a single paddle that I've ever tested that was above 126. But yeah,
you haven't tested the Franklins yet, have you? The new ones?
No, yeah, I think those are 128 and 135.
Those are beefy boys too.
Yeah. Those are not for me. Those are not for me. Those are.
I think a lot of high level players and pros don't care. They're okay with that.
Yeah.
But for they're those of us who still need to hit the gym.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
They're literal professional athletes. It's a totally different ball game. But we'll get there one day, man. I mean, I'm 34. How old are you?
Well, 35. So close.
35. Yeah, we're young, dude. We're just hitting our prime.
We are just now older than 99% of professional athletes in every sport. Yeah, so we're good.
Exactly. We got.
It's kind of crazy now when you watch sports and you realize, oh shit.
Yeah,
they're actually all young. They talk about the veterans in the game who need to retire, and they're like, oh, those people are 32.
Yeah. Oh, they're younger than I am. Yeah. Very depressing. Anyway, speaking of depressing and Proton, Andrei Daescu.
And pros.
Yeah, and pros. Andrei Daescu was caught putting a foreign substance on his Proton paddle. Before we get into this, I think it's absolutely insane that he did that because, and you correct me if you disagree, but I genuinely think this is the highest spinning paddle on the market. I haven't had any paddle that I felt this confident on with rolls and just adding spin to drives and flicks as this Proton paddle. So it's crazy that he did that. So a little bit more about it than I do. So I'll let you kind of speak onto it.
Well, I might. What I know is probably hearsay anyway. But I agree with you. It's like these Proton paddles. I don't know if I'd say it's the highest, but it's got to be up there, right? It's close enough to the highest for it to be functionally the same. Those paddles spin crazy. So to imagine putting additional substances on there, although he had said recently that Andrei said this, that he has only had 3 Proton paddles over the past year, and he's been rotating those same 3. So maybe it does degrade. Maybe that one was degraded. Maybe he was looking for a little extra. But anyway, so he gets caught at this last tournament, and then the punishment is a 60-day suspension from PPA tournaments and MLP tournaments, which is huge, by the way, because he's like one of the top male players, especially right now. He's been killing it, dude. It's like medaling every PPA, and then, of course, he's just a really strong player in MLP because he's good at mixed and men's. So
beat the Johns brothers as well.
Yeah, he's just been doing really good. So suspension, and then a $50,000 fine, which is, people think pro athletes $50K isn't much, but this is pickleball, so $50K is a lot. So that's a pretty hefty, fine, and 60 days. I guess that sounds reasonable. I don't know. I don't think I have a judgment either way on if that's a stiff penalty or a soft penalty. It's just. It is what it is. At least they're giving penalties. How many pros have we heard of cheating? How many paddle companies have we heard of cheating? et cetera, with no penalties. It's just like, oh, we found this out, and then nothing happened. Or
it's very interesting.
There have been cases of pros who have like won medals, and then their opponent challenged the paddle after the fact. The paddle failed, and then they didn't get their medals revoked or anything. So that matters because the person that they beat now, gets lower rewards, which is pretty crazy.
Right. Yeah.
But do you want me to tell you the story that I heard about this Andrei situation?
Let's hear the juicy rumors, man.
Well, let's just clarify. It's rumors, But here's what I heard. And supposedly someone heard Andrei say, oh, and it was how he admitted that there is stuff on there because, technically there was an admission that, he did put a foreign substance on that paddle to make it stickier, to make it spin more. But it wasn't for himself, and it wasn't for playing in a tournament. The reason was he wanted to give it to his practice partner so he could practice against a paddle that would spin more, which is crazy. I mean, maybe that's true, but first off, like you said, the Proton gets insane spin, right, already. Why would you want to give it more spin and then practice against that more spin, knowing that the actual pros you're going to play in competition don't have that level of spin? It just seems like a weird thing to do, a weird way to set up your practice that would be, inconsistent with the competition. So I don't know. That's the story. Rumors.
Yeah, we don't really know the full story. I'm sure there's a lot more to it than what is out there right now. I personally, every time I've watched him play or heard him talk, he seems like a very positive and good person. So it was definitely surprising to me. I kind of told you before we got on here, I was like, I almost like, second guess if he did it or not, but you were saying he admitted to it and whatnot. So that's just crazy, man. But apparently cheating is like rampant in pro pickleball.
In a lot of different ways. Well, in
a lot of different ways. Yeah. Well, of course, in pro sports,
why they all have to be policed. Hey, before we dive into the next thing, I want to ask you a couple questions about tournament stuff.
Yes.
So, did you see that just today, and I don't know when this will be released, but this is Wednesday, they said that the YOLA Gen 3s won't be allowed at the Texas Open.
I saw that, yeah. Yeah, I saw that.
So that's pretty juicy because
very interesting.
It seemed like YOLA was pretty confident this was going to get worked out quickly.
Yeah.
And now this is going on the second tournament. Not to mention, PPA and MLP is part of the UPA. Oh, you got one there? Oh, he had the prop ready.
Yeah, it was just sitting here right on top of the Mark 1X.
Hey.
You ever heard of that paddle?
Well, yeah. A little bit.
Oh, man.
I think those are stacked in order, right? From worst to best, from top down?
Yes,
anyway.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, but anyway, that's pretty crazy that they're banned again. I say crazy. I mean, half of me expected YOLA's this large company. They have plenty of money, of course. They were going to figure out some way, and that the PPA, the YOLA's one of their main sponsors, that they were going to find a way that the YOLA's would at least be allowed in the PPA tournament, if not back on the USAP list, regardless. So that was one thing. That's pretty wild. And we're coming right up on that. I'll be there in a couple days at the Texas Open. If it doesn't rain the whole time, it's looking pretty rough. So it might be pouring rain the whole time.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to ask you, this is a callback to what you said earlier. You said you played in the MILP style tournament and then your standard style tournament. What is your preferred format? Do you like the team stuff or the individual?
Oh, I like the team stuff a lot, but it took forever. I mean, we played 4 games total, and we were there we started at 11 and we did not finish until 4 or 5 p.m. So like it was 5 to 6 hours of watching and or playing pickleball. So the hypeness,
courts going, right?
Yeah, so it was only 2 courts, 4 teams total. Fun. So but we played, let's say we were team 1, we played team 2 while teams 3 and 4 played, then we played team 3 while teams 2 and 4, whatever. So everybody was always playing. There was no like sitting out a game while other teams played. So it took a long time. I did really like the team aspect of it a lot. I felt it was like way more hyped up, number one. And number two, I just felt like you actually have a chance to like collaborate and strategize and have like outsider input onto how to play better against the other team, which is something you don't really have when you're playing just regular, doubles. Where there's, I mean, you can obviously take a timeout and go talk to your friends who are watching you if you have them watching you, but I definitely think that it was more enjoyable to play with a team than just the two. However, I love the regular format because it's a lot quicker, a lot faster, and just easier in general. But what about you, man?
I think you would actually like the team format even more if you played somewhere with more available courts. Like, so for instance, whenever I was in the last one, there were multiple courts, right? And like Team A, my team playing against Team B, would actually be happening on two courts at the same time. Like our men's doubles team was playing on courts one against their men's double, and our women's double was playing at the same time.
Dang.
Right next to it.
Yeah.
And then the two mixed would take the same spot, right? And then if there's a dream breaker, everybody stops and plays on one court. Everybody's cheering. Yeah. It's wild. But so you get less like watching and hype, but it's much faster. So I mean, it still happens because a lot of times one game might finish quick. Say your men's finishes quick, and you get to kind of watch the finish of the women's. So I think you'd like it a lot more if there were more courts. It's kind of my preference. But yeah, I'm torn. I don't know. I sort of like the individual aspect of it, although you're not going to catch me playing singles. But the team aspect is just really fun. You just get hype. Everybody gets so much more hype.
I was yelling and screaming like a psychopath. I say just, it's funny because I have this persona on my reviews that I'm like this calm, quiet, serious person. But that is like literally the exact opposite of who I am. Like I'm very goofy, very unserious about just about everything. The only times I'm ever serious is if my wife and I are talking about something that's important, and that's pretty much, or at work. Like if I'm at work, I'm pretty serious as dealing with like clients, because there's a time to turn it on, and that's very rare. In my opinion, because I just think life is fun and can be enjoyable, and you don't have to be super serious about everything. But I just suck at talking on camera. So whenever I'm doing these reviews, I'm like, Lewis.
So you might as well make a living out of it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's a great point. Yeah. I was scared, honestly, to start making reviews. Matt from Mavericks Pickleball was like one of the first people who was like, you should do it. Why not? And then so did Josh from Spartus. So those were like the two people that spurred me on to do it. And then Jam from Honolulu Pickleball Company as well was like, yeah, do it. Like, that'd be tight. So it's very interesting. Very interesting.
I'm glad you do it. You do great at it, honestly.
I appreciate it.
Like I've told you this a lot, but I appreciate your review style. You hit all the pertinent stuff pretty quick, and the production quality is good. So it's just
that's the thing.
You're like in and out. You know what I mean? You're like, I need to know. Yeah. I need to know what the hell this paddle's about. Let's look up Lewis's review.
Yeah, I don't want anybody to sit there and be like, Jesus Christ, Lewis, like, can you please just get on to the good stuff? Like, Pickleball
Which is what would happen if I did that. If I did reviews.
Of course, you would be like,
oh my God, dude.
Diving in. Like, Pickleball Studio and John Q are probably two of the most detail-oriented reviewers, and they frickin' kill it. But it's just like some of the times, and when I first started playing pickleball, I would watch this. I'm like, come on, like, get on to the good stuff. Like, I just want the meat and potatoes. Like, tell me what's good about this paddle, and I don't really care about anything else. Like, I don't care if the handle has an extra thick grip or whatever. It's like, that is slightly important, but also like, it's not something I'm super sensitive to.
It's kind of a good balance because there's room for both, right? So say somebody is moderately interested in a paddle and they watch your review and they're like, "Ooh, this is intriguing." Then they can go watch John's 30-minute breakdown of everything about it and be like, okay, now I've made an informed decision to buy it.
There's 13 unidirectional layers of carbon fiber, and there's also a 3/4 inch. He just goes so into detail. He's a freaking genius, though. So like, he's way smarter than me, knows way more about paddles than me, in terms of their construction and design and just what they're made of. But also, I would rather watch a quick short review of something than something super long, which is,
There's going to be times, just to warn you ahead of time, on this pod, because we talked about getting into some nerdy stuff, not this pod, but in future episodes. There's going to be times where you're going to have to rein me in, because I might start channeling John Q and going too deep into the details, because I'm prone
You're
to do
cueing
that.
it, man.
So,
you're cueing it. That's what we'll call it.
Yeah, exactly. So you'll have to be the the guiding light to keep us on track before I just put everyone to sleep with the spreadsheets.
Yeah, quiet nerd. That's what I'll say.
yeah, that works.
I can be a pretty big nerd to this paddle stuff. Like, I say that it's not super interesting to me, but I also know that it's things that number one, I'm interested in. And number two, need to know, because although I may not touch on everything in my review, having the whole idea of what a paddle is in terms of construction, performance, specs is all super important into creating a overarching idea or overarching review. Because if you don't know the ins and outs of the paddle, you can't really give a good overview of how the paddle performs, in my opinion. So I mean, it's not like I don't pay attention to all of the ins and outs of the construction of a paddle, different types of materials that they're using, or whether the grip is 4.25 inches or 4.125 inches or whatever, just to give a couple examples. Those are things I definitely take into account, but also realize that they don't need to necessarily be in the video if they're on the spec sheet of the website that they're going to purchase it from, because I don't need to read the spec sheet. Whenever people throw this up, I'm just like, geez, I can read this on
the page itself. That makes perfect sense. So it's almost like you feel like you need to be able to talk for an hour intelligently about a paddle in order to decide which are the most important 5 minutes to put in your video.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's what I do. Like, I'll usually just put out bullet points on a notes pad and just kind of run through. I'll use those as my guide for it, because I know those are the 5 or 7 things that I want to touch on. And I know that I'll be able to articulate that in a very streamlined and easy way if I don't have it written down perfectly. If I have it written down perfectly, I'm going to butcher it and start going off the script and start adding way too much crap. So it's just too much.
So speaking of your reviews and your review process, what are you working on? What do you got in the chamber?
Next is probably going to be PaddleTech Bantam series. These are very, very interesting paddles from PaddleTech. I'm gonna
they've been getting highly reviewed.
Compare. Oh, you know what, dude? Look, I have the same little markings on mine now.
Oh, that white stuff, huh?
Yeah, the white stuff.
Did it get wet?
No, it didn't get wet. It's been in my house
for
or
context,
in my bag the whole time.
Yeah. For context, by the way, I have one of those too. And I sent Lewis a picture. I was like, hey, have you seen this? Because around the edge guard, it kind of got whitish, grayish. I don't know if you can see it on camera. But I wasn't sure if it got wet or moist because it's been raining and humid here. But it almost seemed like, how actually super glue tends to look that way when it gets a little wet after the fact. So I thought maybe that's what it was. Nothing that affects performance at all, but just something I noticed. That's funny that it happened on that one too.
I doubt it, but it could be a little bit of ball dust that kind of just gets collected into that crease.
That's not what mine was.
Where the edge guard is. But I would imagine that you probably have a better hand on the pulse or finger on the pulse and as to what that is. So yeah, but Bantam TKO CX. I went with the CX rather than the C. I just feel like for whatever reason, and tell me how you feel about this as well. I feel like I perform worse with paddles that have a shorter than 5.3 inch handle. I feel like it has to be 5.3 inches or 5.5 inches, maybe 5.75 inches, which is what this is. But to give you some context, there's a company who sent me a paddle, and I won't name their name because I did not like their paddle. They have plenty of other good, very good paddles, actually. But they have one elongated shaped paddle with like a 5.2 inch handle, and I hated it. I just thought it was terrible. I'm not sure what it was. Maybe the sweet spot's just too long and narrow. But yeah, do you have the same issue with that?
Yeah, I don't know if it's the same issue. I can't even remember the last time. Well, I guess I tried a 5-inch handle, standard shape.
Mm-hmm.
It just, again, almost going back to the Proton, it almost feels clunky when there's so much face. You know, just like not necessarily the weight, but when the face is just that large, it doesn't feel as maneuverable. It doesn't feel like it's flicky, not nearly as sharp. But it's funny that you say that because with the Mark paddles, you actually like the Mark 1, which has the shorter handle, more than the Mark 1X, which has the 5.75 inch handle. So and by the way, I don't use the two-hander either, and I play with the 1X with the longer handle just because of what we're talking about right now, the maneuverability, the balance, the kind of flickability.
Right.
So.
And I think what I didn't love as much about the 1X compared to the 1 is I felt like the taper was a little bit too aggressive, and that's what ate into the paddle face and just felt like it was a little bit less forgiving. Now, I didn't dislike it. It was just I could tell that I could play better with the 1. But the Proton is listed at 5.25. However, this is the Yola. I mean, it's literally the same length. So if you overgrip it,
man.
So
handle lengths, how they're marketed. Yeah. Actually, let me ask you this question. It's annoying because you never know if a handle length, how it's listed on a website, is shorter or longer than what it actually is. So you have two paddles right next to you, I know right now. Mm-hmm. So this might be a good example. The Paddle Tech, which is 5.75 listed, and then the Mark 1X, which is 5.75 listed. I don't know this yet. Will you see if those are the same length? Because they're marketed as the same length.
Let's see.
But do you know what I mean? This happens all the time, right? So a prime example, of course, is the Double Black Diamond, which is marketed as 5.5, but then the Vatic Flash, which is marketed as 5.3. Yet those are the exact same shape, exact same mold. So it's just kind of, I don't know how we unify this.
The Paddle Tech is just slightly overgripped higher, so they're virtually the same exact. The taper might be just like a 1/10 of an inch higher than the. Oh, sorry, my background is like blurred for you for some reason.
So you have an overgrip on the Paddle Tech, but not on the Mark.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So if you overgrip the Mark, they would be the same, essentially.
Yes, exactly. So they're both. I would say that these are both accurately described as 5.75. This Paddle Tech on this side with the white grip does have a slightly higher taper, but it's a wider neck.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so it widens quicker. But
I was a snob about that, by the way, when it came to marketing the Mark paddles. I was like, I'm not putting this on the site until I can tape measure it myself, and I want to for me, I guess where I think you should go to is the top of the stock grip, which usually has the rubber band there. Mm-hmm. Of course, you can overgrip it. I know the 1X you can overgrip to 6 inches easily, over 6 inches. I have an image of that, but we're not going to advertise that because not everybody uses overgrips. So. Anyway, sorry, I don't mean to just talk about our paddle, but that's just the example that I know in and out.
Gosh, dude, quit talking about these good paddles from Mark. Discount code Pursuit 10%, right?
Probably.
You'll do 10%.
Yeah. Sounds right.
It's confusing. Most people do 10, but like bread and butter, for instance, is 15% off. But after the Bantams, I'm going to be reviewing either the Shogun or the J3K. I think I'm going to do something crazy. I think I'm going to potentially do just the J3K and a first look on the Pro, and then play with the Pro for like 3 weeks, like almost main it, just to see how it is, because I have a feeling that that is going to be the paddle that I'm most in tuned with, but also probably going to be a paddle that I feel like is going to be most utilized for competitive play. So
And you're gonna do a separate review on the J3K and the J3K
Yeah.
Pro. Is what you're saying?
I did, yeah. But I did a combined review of the J7K and J7K Pro because they were fairly similar apart from just the pop levels of those paddles, which,
Yeah.
man, those paddles hit freaking hard, dude. And they have so much spin. But, yeah, Shogun will either be after the J3K or before the J3K. So J3K should be here probably tomorrow. But I've pretty much played with this. The reason why I'm holding off on this review is just because they don't even have them for sale right now. So I don't want to send out a review and have people be like, oh, I can't even freaking buy this right now because it's not available. So J3K, J3K Pro, Shogun. I have a crap ton of paddles that just got sent to me. Couple from Ethos, and as well as I'm gonna do like a top 5, maybe top 6 or 8 paddles under $100. Wish the Pure would be $100 and available, but apparently no
gone,
more.
dude.
Right?
It's gone.
It's gone.
It's gone. It's done.
That was such a good paddle.
We've all moved on.
That was fighting for number 1, dude.
Yeah.
Are you able
gone.
to tell us why that's not coming, or is that not
Just
public business?
Yeah, it just got some different things in the pipeline. Essentially
Gotcha,
replacements. Think of it that way, but
Yeah.
it's not anything that's releasing next week or anything like that.
Yeah.
So it'll be some time.
So it was a good battle. I'm just saying.
It's the one that I played tournaments with for months, by the way. So I know.
It's
I mean,
ridiculous.
to be fair, you don't want to like intercompete too much within your own range, right? And I'm not just talking about us. I'm talking about brands in general.
Yeah.
So right now, the Mark 1, and I just did this the other day. I have Pure 16, and the Mark 1 is slightly updated, of course, from the Kinetic. It plays a little different. Well, it actually is pretty close to the Pure. They play pretty similarly. So
Dang.
I don't know that it makes sense to have both in the lineup. Although there probably will be some variations, whether that's surface material thickness, things like that, that you'll see. Of course, we kind of have the shapes covered, except for a standard shape. But with the hybrid shape, everybody loves it. The elongated shape, that's traditional. We still have a lot of people who want that. And then now, of course, the long handle hybrid, the 1X, that's kind of our interesting paddle. Of course, that's the one I told you I have like proud dad syndrome about it, because that was the one that I messed with, prototyped, and took a while to design, and I think it's come out pretty cool. So
very
with those
unique
shapes covered, now we just need some variations, whether, like I said, that be surface or thickness or coarse or whatever. So we're gonna flesh out the line. You won't see the name Pure again, but there may be another paddle that kind of fills that niche.
Tears. Very sad. Yeah, that was a paddle that was like, holy crap. I wouldn't say holy crap. I'd say something else if I wasn't on camera. This paddle is ridiculously good, and it is so damn well priced. Very similar to the JTK.
You still have yours?
I see. Yes, I have both of them. I'm looking right at them.
You have the 14?
I have the 14, yeah.
You didn't even like that one. That was the one.
Did you break
I made
yours?
the 14. No. I'm not trying to get it from you.
Well, if you break
I
yours,
still
just
have
let
my
me know.
14.
I'll send it over.
I have my 14 in the bag still.
Okay.
Nah,
good,
man.
good.
We've moved on. Bigger and better things. I don't touch the Pure anymore.
It
doesn't get any love anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anyway. But yeah, that's pretty much what I've got going on right now. There's some other things in the bag that I can't currently talk about. But there's a couple of reviews that will be coming after that of companies that I have reviewed, it's not like, something crazy that I can't talk about, but I just can't show it on camera yet.
Yeah.
But so yeah, a couple of cool paddles coming up, and then yeah, that's it, man. So all right, you talked about newer and better things in different shapes and sizes. Let's talk about trends of paddle trends, whether it be shapes or just construction, whatever. Or if you want to just stick with one thing, tell me.
Yeah. Well, I think that standard shapes or wide bodies, I think I just kind of categorize those together. Standard wide body, really, it's like not much different. They've been hugely trending this year, and for good reason. I feel like they were actually popular years ago. Like classic old school pickleball standard shapes were really popular, and then everybody went to like elongated shapes for some reason. And then of course there was the introduction of the hybrid. Let's call it a little over a year ago. Took the market by storm. Everybody loves a hybrid. We both personally still love hybrids. It's a great shape, right? But now we're seeing like the resurgence of the standard shape, the wide bodies, and the reality is that shape probably fits 90% of players really well, because 90% of players are below 3.5. So give them a paddle with a bigger sweet spot and a little bit more forgiveness, and it's probably going to work well. So we're definitely seeing a lot of that shape wise. And of course, another big trend that is hitting hard now is, long handles. You just showed the paddle tack. There's plenty of paddles out there that have 6-inch handles, and upcoming even standard shapes with long handles, J3K, things like that. So that's kind of a combination of both trends there. So I think long handles are definitely trending. And then I won't be surprised. I fully expect we're going to see a lot more long handle hybrids, given that, that's where my mind's been at literally since last November when I started working on the 1X. I've been pushing to get out a long handle hybrid, and we were the first like long handle flared hybrid shape that people are used to, like that got approved. And I don't think we're going to be the last. I think there are going to be plenty more. I think it's a great shape. Yeah. I'm not butthurt about that at all. I think it's a great shape, and more companies should offer it, to be honest.
You're the trendsetter, man. You're the trendsetter.
No. Just it wasn't hard to read that one. I mean, that was kind of obvious, right?
Yeah.
No,
not to sell yourself short.
I think standard shapes for sure. Wide bodies.
Yeah.
Like the Apollo. I don't know. Have you already reviewed that?
Yeah, I reviewed the Apollo. I really liked it. Top tier paddle. For
really
sure.
Good paddle.
No questions about it. And the fact that it's $117 is psycho. I mean, it's just like the Pure, like the Pure and the J2, like those paddles are so dang good. They're so good.
Yeah.
Like, and the fact that they are that cheap is crazy. So it's just, even when like the Kinetic first came out, it was $135. Like that price was stupid for what you got for that paddle. Like stupid. It was a no-brainer.
It's still only $144.
Well, yeah, but I mean, $135 sounds really good. $144 sounds pretty damn good. But I do think that wide bodies will be more seen more often in paddle companies. I would love for Paddle Tech, and this is kind of a slight spoiler for my review, but I would love if they made a hybrid shape with a 5.3 or 5.5 inch handle of this. I think this is a very unique and interesting construction. I think what they're doing with Gen 1 and perimeter weighting, and I assume they're doing something with the core that makes it more reactive and powerful. I think that's something that we're going to see more of, because we're having so many problems with core crushing, core corruption, EVA foam expansion that's degenerating the paddle's core, which you and I will get on like a very long topic of this. We touched on this on our live, but I want you to talk about the how foam affects cores and their ability to stay in good condition. So, but I think Gen 1 paddles are probably going to come back in a different way. I do think that titanium is going to be the next material that is big. I've already
so?
I've seen one other company already create
Nexus?
Nexus. Yep. Nexus has created a titanium paddle that has EVA foam injected in the core. Yikes. A little scary. And then I
Yeah.
definitely think that Kevlar is here to stay. I know that
Yep.
Chris Olsen at Pickleball Studio has said that Kevlar is a buzzword. I would strongly disagree with that. And I know what he means by that. And what he's saying is it's not necessarily better or worse. And I would agree that it's not better or worse. But I don't think it's a buzzword at all. I actually think that we've seen Kevlar paddles outperform every single adjacent carbon fiber or alternate face material paddle with same specs. In the J2K as a perfect example of that, compared to the 6-0 double black diamond, which is for all intents and purposes everybody's top hybrid shape paddle for whatever reason. I think there's quite a few paddles that are just as good, if not better, than that currently. But what we've seen from Kevlar is that it is absolutely just as good and better in most cases. And that could just be the fact that they are getting better at creating paddles. You will have a much better idea of this. But I do think that Kevlar is a more desirable material because I feel like it feels better, number one, in terms of playability. I feel like it offers a better feedback, and this could just be a multitude of things, whether it's the weave density or the core that they're using. I think that all of the Kevlar paddles that I've used have felt marginally better than the carbon fiber counterparts, apart from a few paddles here and there.
Even if you said that performance is otherwise equal, Kevlar can come in colors.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It can look cool. I mean, at the end of the day, people want paddles that look cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for that reason alone, it can stay because it's clear that it's not worse. Right? So as long as it's not worse and you have design options, then probably going to stick around. Last thing I'll say on the trends is I bet you that we're going to see a comeback of fiberglass. Just used smarter. So, I mean, it's already kind of happening.
Know there is. Yeah. I've had many companies. Well, the Sword and Shield J2H, for instance, is one of the most powerful hybrid shape paddles that I've tested, with a huge caveat. Power testing, which we will get into next. Power and RPM testing, we're going to talk about those and just the validity of them. But the Sword and Shield J2H uses a raw fiberglass top layer, if I'm not mistaken, and that paddle slaps hard. I do think fiberglass will be implemented. I know for a fact that companies put fiberglass in their professionals' paddles so that they can have a more poppy and powerful paddle. I know for a fact. Can't say who does that, but there are companies who do that for their pros because they just want maximum pop at the kitchen line because that is the name of the game right now. That's why the Gen 3 Yolas are so popular because they have...
Speaking of Gen 3 Yolas and making different paddles for pros, I wonder if USAP knows that. Because if it's a different construction than what's on the market, than what was approved, then it should probably be delisted. It needs to be approved under a different name. Hey, I know. We're not the approval police.
Yeah, we're not the approval... Well, I don't think any of the approval police actually are doing the right thing, if you ask me. But I digress. So, now that we've got the juicy... I
think some of them are trying.
Yes, I think some of them are trying, for sure. Some of them are probably picking out scapegoats. RPM and power testing. This is our last topic for today. I have a very interesting relationship with both of these metrics for testing. I do think that they are valuable to some extent. However, I don't think that they are accurate, number one, or two, a indicator that you should take as truth, fact, or a very good, I guess indicator is really the only word I can use. A very good indicator of how the paddle performs.
So
you tell me how you feel about that.
Well, let me ask you something first. You have on your reviews, you do like 0 to 5 scale for like pop and power.
Yes.
Are you using like mile per hour testing to get those numbers, or are you just going off feel?
For the past 5 to 10 reviews, I have RPM tested and power tested all the paddles. So
okay.
What I generally do is I will have a paddle that I perceive to be the most powerful, which is the Gearbox Power Pro Elongated. I have what I have measured on a radar gun with that. And then this is why I don't believe that they're very valid numbers. I've tested paddles that I am 100% certain are not as powerful. The Sword and Shield J7K Pro, which is a extremely powerful paddle. It is super powerful. It hits very hard, but it does not hit as hard as the Gearbox Power Pro Elongated or Yola Gen 3. That paddle destroyed the Gearbox in my power testing. Why do you think that is?
That's interesting. How far away is the radar gun from?
Each
Is it like
one,
at the net?
No, they're far side of the court at the baseline.
So far away from you as possible, basically.
Yeah, as far away as possible. But we've also tested
on pickleball court
directly behind me. Yeah. And I don't test if the ball goes in. I don't know if other people test if the ball goes in. I don't care if the ball goes in. Yeah,
it's mixed.
I don't think that matters to me, because if you're hitting the ball as hard as you possibly can, if it goes in, great. If it doesn't, you're hoping that they're gonna block it and mess up and hit it into the net. So
you mean like a drive? Yeah.
Yeah, that's my thoughts on that.
So that's interesting. Yeah, okay, well, here's a follow-up question, because I can't say for sure, of course, if the gun is not telling the full story or whatever. But what I do know is that there are perceptions of power and pop that are, influenced by things other than the actual mile per hour of the ball. Yeah. The sound of the paddle, the feel of the feedback, all that stuff. Like, you can give somebody, a lot of times, like an EVA paddle, for instance, and have them whack a ball, and then give them like a really stiff, like maybe even the Paddle Tech or something.
Yep.
And then they'll be like, wow, this freaking thing hits so hard, the Paddle Tech. When in reality, they didn't hit as hard. It's just, it's stiffer, it's louder.
You feel it. Yeah, you feel it more.
Yeah, and the Gearbox is a good example too, because it's kind of quiet, you know, and it catches you off guard. Sometimes someone will do a speed up on the Gearbox, and it's not even that loud, and you get totally caught off guard.
Right.
So I don't know. I think, I know of paddles that personally that I've said, apparently I've been wrong about, because I'm like, oh yeah, it's softer, it's not as poppy, but they test higher mile per hour, like on pop tests. So there's a lot more to it, like that plush feeling or a stiff feeling can give a perception of a poppy paddle or a control paddle, when in reality it doesn't line up with the mile per hour. I don't know. I mean, I would like to say that your radar gun is right, and maybe the J7K Pro is more powerful than the PPE, the Gearbox, but I don't know. It's hard to say.
My thoughts are that either I'm just catching them better with specific paddles. The Gearbox has a pea-sized sweet spot, so that could have a tremendous effect on,
definitely,
how much power I'm able to get out of it. But my main thought process as to why some paddles that are not power paddles have tested on the same level of the Gearbox, like the J2K tested at the same miles per hour as the Gearbox Power Pro Elongated.
Oh wow.
Not a power paddle.
Not as powerful.
Hits hard, but is not a power paddle. My thought process is it could come down to a more lively arm that day. I was just feeling better, or my mechanics were better. So, two things that are completely uncontrollable are very much the human side of, performance indicators.
Yeah.
So I think that when it comes to RPM and power testings, there's no ability to be completely accurate unless it is done with a robot. They do it in golf. I'm sure they do something like that in tennis. But I know for a fact that they test golf drivers with robot arms. And that's how they see if the new driver that they're creating is more powerful or, more forgiving than the previous model. So I don't think that those two tests are very accurate. I'm not saying that they're inaccurate. I just don't think that it's something that someone should be like, oh,
not
okay.
Exact.
Yeah. The Ruby has 2,272 RPMs. That is exactly the RPM number that I'm going to get from this. Not really. That's just 10 serves from one person who has completely different mechanics than you have. And
once you build up, I guess, enough of a database, though, you can kind of compare it to yourself.
True.
Right? So,
however,
I agree with you. I think it can be valuable. It just needs to be presented right.
Yeah.
Right.
However, John Q even said this. His spin numbers are getting higher and higher, and he's questioning whether his technique is potentially getting better, which could indicate a larger RPM number. So the human element, in my opinion, is what makes these tests inaccurate, doesn't nullify them by any stretch of the imagination. It just makes them to a point where I don't feel comfortable using those metrics as a gauge of what I believe the power levels are. I know that firmness of a paddle has nothing to do with how powerful it is. The thickness of the core doesn't necessarily, dictate how powerful a paddle is. Generally, 16 millimeter paddles are more powerful than 14 millimeter paddles, but those things don't necessarily, indicate for certain that these are, going to be more powerful or more spinny. But anyway,
I think that's true for every aspect of a paddle, right? The sum is greater than the parts. It depends on how it's all put together and a bunch of things with the process too. You can't just say, oh, carbon fiber 16 millimeter, it's going to hit this mile per hour. It's not going to work that way. I agree. I think, Braden from Pickleball Effect has kind of realized the same thing, and a lot of the reviewers probably are now. And, it's whenever he gives his RPM, it's more like he says, oh, the spin on this paddle is top tier or really good or at the bottom of top tier. It's just like classifying it. Like, dude, it's good enough. It's very good. It's not great. That's, I think, kind of the bottom line of spin testing of what another person can tell you. In my mind, at least.
Yeah, I agree. And that's something that people should understand. Just because, Braden with Pickleball Effect is getting 2,100 RPM on a paddle doesn't mean that you're going to get that. So just keep that in mind. These are tailored to the human that is testing them and what they can produce in terms of their technique and, power and, RPMs. So big rant, huge rant, went way too hard on that. But that's just kind of my thoughts and something that I've always wanted to say on video, but did not want to make a 20-minute video about something that people are going to be like, well, if, blah, blah, blah is using it, I think it's true, or, and this is not me saying that any of them are inaccurate or bad reviewers. I think all of them do an exceptional job, and they put a lot of time and effort. But it's,
I totally get it. This is our chance, right? Start a podcast, then we can talk for 45 minutes or an hour about shit that people do not care about.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what's expected. So now we get to vent all of our rants. I'm actually saving mine as your part-time co-host. So just get ready for some future rants.
I'm excited. This
can be your rant episode, and then I'll have my time.
Yeah,
I'll have my time.
Let's just make this the whining podcast where we just whine about things
Oh God.
for pickleball.
Yeah.
Everybody's
we'll just do
gonna
it at
think
the
we're a
end.
bunch
That
of
way, if
whiny
people want to
babies.
watch
Exactly.
if they want to watch the first part, then we could let everybody know. Okay, now we're gonna whine for the next 20 minutes if you want.
Exactly. Yeah. Let me put a whining disclaimer right before this RPM and power testing segment.
You are whining. I think you're on point, and I think other people have thought the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be interesting sometimes to dive into little details about what RPM is, but you have to take it with many grains of salt. And
Absolutely.
just what really matters is the spin good enough? Is it garbage?
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, so. I agree. That's pretty much my thoughts. Is like this top tier? Is it pretty high spin? And if it's kind of under high spin, it's not something that I would really recommend.
Agreed.
So it's just
it's got to be good.
It's got to be good, especially nowadays. Everything is phenomenal.
Yeah, you can't just release a great paddle that has mediocre spin. It's just it's not viable right now. So I think a spin is a requirement. Honestly, good spin to have a good paddle.
Absolutely. Well, Justin, I feel like we've been on for an hour. There we go. We did good, man. We're right on schedule. Okay. That was pretty much it, man. Do you have anything else before we end this podcast? First one.
All right, dude. No, thanks for having me.
Of course, man.
If we have any listeners who made it this far, of course, let us know what you want us to talk about, because as you saw, Lewis can rant. So
I can rant, dude.
All he needs is a damn topic. So
all I need is something to be pissed off about.
No, but for real, of course he plays with a ton of paddles. So if you guys are interested in anything about, differentiation between paddle brands or different things like that, or if you want to get into some nerdy stuff, of course I do a lot of prototyping and the actual product development, manufacturing of paddles. There, some stuff, of course, I could reveal about what it's like to be on the other side of a paddle company. Mm-hmm. So just any comments, questions, let us know. Let us know how we can do better, mainly Lewis. But just remember, earlier in the podcast, he said, I'm sensitive. So make sure you keep your comments nice.
Yeah, very sensitive. Both of us, right? Or did you say you're sensitive?
Maybe. No, you said that.
I said you're sensitive?
No, you said you are sensitive.
Oh, I'm very sensitive, yeah. I am a gentle soul. Yeah, but anyway. Thank you guys for tuning in to the first episode of the Pickleball Pursuit podcast. I'm going to mess that up many times going forward. We may do this once a week. We may do this never again. Who knows? So it really just depends on y'all's feedback. Yeah. But I had a great time. Justin?
I was just going to... I had a good time too. It's just funny you messed up that name, because, one of the names in the hat that we might have pulled out was Peter Piper's Pickleball Pursuit Paddle Podcast. So...
We thought about it long and hard. Yeah.
That was definitely a front runner.
Alliteration is a tough thing for me to do, in terms of speaking. Really just speaking in general. I'm so bad at it. But anyway. So yeah.
All right, dude. Catch you next time.
We'll try that again. This is the Pickleball Pursuit Podcast. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, hit them in the comment section below. Justin, thank you for joining us, man. This is going to be fun. Had a great time. We'll see you guys in the next one.